The spring of 1863. Napoleon III's expeditionary army is grinding through its second year in Mexico, trying to install Archduke Maximilian of Austria on a throne nobody asked for. The decisive operation is the Siege of Puebla. General Eliphas Frederick Faure has 35,000 French troops dug in around the city, and General Jesus González Ortega has 22,000 Mexican Republicans behind its walls. The siege is starving on both sides. Faure needs one thing more than reinforcements. He needs the convoy. A column of 64 wagons is rolling inland from Veracruz on the coastal road. On board, 3 million francs in silver coin to pay the army, plus a siege train of heavy artillery and 300 mules of ammunition. Lose that convoy and Puebla holds. The siege collapses. The whole Mexican adventure could unravel from one ambush. Colonel Francisco de Paula Millan knows this. He commands the Mexican Republican forces in Veracruz province, and he has been ordered to find that convoy and destroy it. He assembles a strike force, 3 cavalry regiments under Colonels Cambas, Villagran, and Lucas, roughly 800 riders, joined later by 3 infantry battalions out of Jalapa and Veracruz, another 1,200 men. 2,000 soldiers, hunting one wagon train across the Tierra Caliente. Standing between Milan and the convoy is the 1st Battalion of the Regiment Étranger, the French Foreign Legion. Their commander, Colonel Pierre Giningros, is sweating out yellow fever in Chiquihuite. He knows the convoy is moving, he knows Mexican cavalry is in the area, and he is short on officers. So on the night of April 29th, he orders the 3rd Company forward to screen the road. The 3rd Company is 62 enlisted men and 3 officers, and it has no captain, no lieutenant. No 2nd lieutenant. Every officer is sick or detached, so 3 volunteers step up from the battalion staff. The quartermaster captain, Jean Danjou, pay Lieutenant Jean Villain, and Sub-Lieutenant Clement Maudet, the standard bearer. None of them are infantry line officers by trade. Danjou is 45 years old, a veteran of Crimea, Italy, and the brutal Kabylia campaigns in Algeria. He lost his left hand in 1853 when a musket exploded during action in North Africa. He had a hand carved from wood with articulated fingers held by leather straps, and he wore it openly. The men called him Le Capitaine au Gant, the captain with the glove. At 1 in the morning on April 30th, the 3rd Company marches out of Chiquihuite into the dark. 3 officers, 62 Legionnaires, 64 rounds per man, and somewhere in the chaparral ahead of them, 2,000 Mexican soldiers are riding for the same road. But here is what most retellings leave out: Danjou is not supposed to fight. His orders are to scout and screen. The decision that turns this from a patrol into a legend has not been made yet. Dawn, April 30th. The 3rd Company is moving along the dusty road through Palo Verde when Danjou orders a halt to make coffee. The men stack arms, the mules graze, and at roughly 7 in the morning the lookouts spot dust on the horizon. A lot of dust. Colonel Cambas has found them first. His cavalry comes in at the gallop. Danjou forms square, the classic infantry response to mounted attack. 4 ranks deep, bayonets out, hollow center for the wounded. The 1st Mexican charge breaks against the square. So does the 2nd. Danjou's men kill horses and riders at point-blank range, then begin a fighting withdrawal toward the nearest defensible ground. They are heading for the village of Camaron, and specifically for a small ruined ranch on its outskirts, the Hacienda de la Trinidad. In the confusion of breaking out of the square, the company loses its baggage mules. Those mules carry the reserve ammunition, the water, and the food. The men reach the hacienda with what they are carrying, and what they are carrying is roughly 60 rounds each, no water and no rations. It is going to be 100 degrees Fahrenheit by mid-morning. The hacienda is a single-story adobe compound about 50 meters square, 1 main building, a courtyard with a stable. Outer walls of mud brick may be 3 meters high. The roof is partly collapsed. Danjou posts shooters at the windows, at loopholes punched into the walls, and on what remains of the roof. By 9 in the morning, the entire Mexican column has caught up and surrounded the hacienda. 3 full battalions of infantry, 3 regiments of cavalry, 2,000 men against 46 legionnaires inside the walls, because 18 are already dead, wounded, or cut off outside. This is the turning point. Not a tactical move, a decision. Colonel Millan sends an emissary under flag of truce. The terms are generous. Surrender and the Legion will be treated with full military honors. There is no shame in it. The math is impossible. The Mexicans even point out correctly that they outnumber the defenders more than 40 to 1. Danjou refuses, then he does something stranger. He walks to each man at his loophole and makes him raise his right hand and swear on his honor as a legionnaire that he will fight to the death and not surrender. 62 men give their word, one by one, while Mexican infantry forms up outside the walls. Here is what the history books leave out. Danjou is not making a tactical decision. He is making a moral one. He has calculated that the convoy, the silver, the siege guns, the survival of the entire Puebla operation needs every hour he can buy. Every minute his company fights here is a minute Milan's 2,000 men are not on the coastal road hunting wagons. The oath is not bravado. It is arithmetic written in blood. If this is landing, save this video. You will want to come back to this one. The assault begins. Mexican infantry rushes the walls from 3 sides. Legionnaires fire in disciplined volleys, then individual aimed shots through the loopholes. The courtyard fills with bodies. A second assault. A third. By 11 in the morning, the hacienda is a furnace, no water, the wounded screaming, smoke from burning hay drifting through the rooms. And then at around 11:30, Captain Danju is hit in the chest by a Mexican rifle ball. He dies almost instantly, the wooden hand still strapped to his left arm. Command falls to Lieutenant Villing. He keeps the men firing. The Legionnaires drink wine because there is no water. They prop the dead against the loopholes to make the garrison look larger. Villing takes a bullet to the head around 2 in the afternoon. Now Sub-Lieutenant Maudet, 22 years old, is in command of what is left. By 5 in the afternoon, the defenders have been fighting for 10 hours. The ammunition is almost gone. The courtyard is full of Mexican dead, and Maudet has 12 men still on their feet. But we will get to the moment that shocked even the Mexican officers. Stay with me. Colonel Milan is furious. He has lost hundreds of men assaulting an adobe ranch defended by what he initially thought was a reinforced battalion. He has been told now by prisoners taken from the company's outlying wounded that the garrison started the day with 65 men. His own staff does not believe it. He decides to end this. He orders the hacienda set on fire and the final assault prepared. Inside, Maudet does the count. 12 men still fighting, then 10, then 8. The roof is burning. The wounded who can still hold a rifle are propped at the walls. By 5 in the afternoon, Maudet has 5 legionnaires standing with him in a single corner of the courtyard. Each has 1 round left. Maudet gives the order, fix bayonets. Charge. 6 men come out of the smoke at a run into the courtyard packed with Mexican infantry. They fire their last round at point-blank range, then go in with the bayonet. Maudet is shot down. 2 legionnaires fall with him. And then a Mexican officer, most accounts name him as Sub-Lieutenant Ramirez, though some say Colonel Cambas himself, physically stops his own men from killing the remaining 3. He shouts at them to lower their weapons. 3 survivors still standing are Corporal Philippe Maine, Legionnaire Louis Maine's namesake on the muster roll, and 2 privates, Cato, who is bleeding from multiple wounds, and Wenzel, a German who has been shot in the chest. Cato will die of his wounds that night. He took at least 19 bullets shielding Maudet during the final charge. Corporal Maine, surrounded by Mexican soldiers with bayonets at his throat, refuses to lay down his weapon. He demands terms, 3 demands. They will keep their rifles. They will keep their equipment, and they will be allowed to escort their wounded officer, Maudet, still alive at this point, to medical care. A Mexican officer relays the demands to Colonel Milan. Milan reportedly says, "What can I refuse to such men? No, these are not men, they are demons." He grants every term. It is around 6 in the evening on April 30th. The fighting at Camaron has lasted nearly 11 hours. The casualty count is staggering in both directions. Of the 65 legionnaires who began the day, 22 are dead, including all 3 officers. Maudet will die of his wounds the next day. Roughly 20 more are wounded prisoners. Only the 3 who took the final demands walked out under arms. The Mexican losses are far higher. Contemporary French accounts and later historians estimate Milan lost between 90 and 190 killed, with 300 to 400 wounded. Either way, a regular infantry company defending a ruined ranch had inflicted catastrophic losses on a force 40 times its size. But that is not the most important number. The most important number is ours. 11 of them. While Danju's company was burning at Camaron, the convoy with the silver and the siege guns rolled past on the coastal road unmolested and reached the French army outside Puebla. The siege held. Puebla fell on May 17th, 2.5 weeks later. González Ortega surrendered the Mexican Army of the East. Mexico City fell to Fori on June 7th. Maximilian arrived to take his throne the following year. The strategic objective Danju bought with his life. The convoy accomplished its mission. Was it worth it? That is the argument historians still have because the French-Mexican adventure ended in disaster within 4 years. Maximilian was shot by firing squad at Querétaro in June 1867. The empire collapsed. But that is another video. The day after the battle, Mexican locals stripped the bodies and burned the hacienda. Captain Danju's wooden hand was found in the debris by a rancher named Mejia. Years later, in 1865, a French officer purchased the relic back from him for 50 pesos. It was carried back to France. Today, that wooden hand sits in a glass case at the Musée de la Légion étrangère at Aubigny, the headquarters of the French Foreign Legion. Once a year on April 30th, Cameron Day, the Legion's most sacred holiday, the hand is removed from its case and carried in solemn procession by the most senior officer present, escorted by a guard of honor. The names of Danju, Villain, and Maudit are read aloud in every Legion mess in the world. The account of the battle is read in full. Then every Legionnaire, from general to recruit, eats the same meal. The phrase entered the language of the Legion, fair Cameron, to do a Cameron. To fight to the death when surrender is offered. It is not a tactical concept. It is a moral one. Every Legionnaire is taught that under specific circumstances, the mission outweighs the man, and that holding ground long enough to matter is sometimes more important than surviving. Tactically, Cameron changed nothing. 65 men with rifled muskets in an adobe ruin is not a model that scales to industrial warfare. But doctrinally, Cameron became the founding myth of a military culture that still recruits, still fights, and still wins, from Dien Bien Phu to Kolwezi to the deserts of Mali. The Legion's modern motto, Legio Patria Nostra, the Legion is our country, is a direct descendant of the oath Danju administered at the loopholes that morning. There is a darker reading. The French Empire was, by 1863, fighting an unjust war of intervention to install a foreign monarch in a sovereign republic. The Mexican soldiers Milan led that day were defending their own country. The valor at Cameron does not change the politics of the operation. And yet, and this is what historians still argue about, the Mexican High Command itself recognized the conduct of the Third Company as something distinct from the cause it served. Milan's words, demonios no son hombres, were not propaganda invented by French staff officers. They came from the enemy. The question the historians cannot agree on is the one Danju answered with the oath. Was holding that hacienda actually necessary? Some argue the convoy could have been protected by a fighting withdrawal back to Chiquihuite. Others point out that without the hours bought at Cameron, the Mexican cavalry would have caught the wagons on open road. We cannot rerun the experiment. But Danju made the call he made, knowing he would not live to see whether it was the right one. CTA, 1213 Min. If you have made it this far, you understand military history the way it should be taught, not as dates and treaties, but as decisions made by specific people at specific moments who could not see how it would end. That is what this channel does every week. Subscribe and hit the bell icon, new battle every Wednesday. We cover the operations the textbooks skip and the decisions the historians still cannot resolve. Drop in the comments. Was Danju's oath the right call, or did he sacrifice 62 men for a convoy that could have been saved another way? I read every reply. Outro 1315 Min. Cameron is, in the end, a story about what one company commander could buy with the lives entrusted to him. Danju bought 11 hours. With those 11 hours, an empire's logistics survived another day. The empire itself did not survive the decade, but the Legion, the institution, outlived the empire that created it, in part because of what happened in that burning courtyard. A military unit becomes a tribe when its men believe they are connected to a story larger than their own enlistment. Cameron is that story for the French Foreign Legion. The wooden hand is its relic. April 30th is its sacrament. The oath is its sacrament's words. The lesson is not that men should die for empires. The lesson is that the strategic value of an action is sometimes invisible to the men performing it, and that the discipline to hold ground you cannot win on is the rarest quality in any army. Danju's 65 did not believe they would prevail. They believed they could buy time. Time bought the convoy. The convoy held the siege. The siege took Puebla. That chain of cause and effect was sealed at the loopholes of Cameron with 62 oaths. If this one hit, my video on the siege of Dien Bien Phu, where the Legion would fight its second great impossible stand 90 years later, against an army nobody believed could exist, will blow your mind. That is the operation where Cameron Day was celebrated under artillery fire, in a doomed garrison by men who knew exactly what oath they were renewing. See you there. On April 30th, 1863, 65 men of the 3rd Company, 1st Battalion of the French Foreign Legion, commanded by Captain Jean Danju, were surrounded at the Hacienda de la Trinidad near Camarón de Tejeda, Veracruz, by roughly 2,000 Mexican Republican soldiers under Colonel Francisco de Paula Milan. For nearly 11 hours they refused surrender, swore an oath to fight to the death, and bought the time needed to protect a French convoy carrying silver and siege artillery to the siege of Puebla. By sundown, only 3 Legionnaires were still on their feet. This is the full story of the Battle of Camarón, the strategic background, the turning point, the final bayonet charge, and the wooden hand that became the Foreign Legion's most sacred relic. Every April 30th, the Legion still reads their names aloud. 00, 00, the stand at Camarón 00. 45, the convoy that could not be lost 03. 00 the Oath at Cameron 06, 00 the Bayonet at Sundown 09, 00 the Wooden Hand and the Legion 12, 00 subscribe for weekly battles 13, 00 the Legacy of Cameron Day.